everyone. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Ryan Drew, and I am the Director of Integrated Services for Newcomers at Success. And I'm really honored to have the opportunity to share with you today a bit about my 25 years of experience in the settlement sector. And before I really dive into it, I just want to acknowledge that I am joining from the shared Coast Salish territories, specifically the Quequitlem, Katzie, Stolo, Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And I am truly honored to be able to live, work, and rest on these lands. So um, I wanted to share a little bit about the agency I work for, so you have a bit of a context of the type of work that I have been doing, and then I will share a bit more about myself and my experience and sort of my journey through the years, the 25 years working within this sector. So Success has a vision and mission that we refreshed just a few years ago. And, we're really focused on having a vibrant Canadian society where people thrive and contribute to inclusive communities. And we do that by empowering people on their Canadian journey to achieve their goals through services and advocacy that promote belonging, wellness, and independence. And, I feel like this vision and mission truly resonates with the type of work that I want to be doing in the world. And so that's part of what drives my passion to be working in settlement. Now, a little bit more about the agency. We are one of the largest newcomer social service agencies in Canada. We have 51 years of experience, and last year we served over 82,000 unique clients in 50 different languages, which resulted in about 182,000 client services. Because, of course, clients usually don't need just one service and they need a lot of support in many different areas. And so, this is why we have way more services than we do unique clients. Our offices are located right across Metro Vancouver, Fort St. John, Toronto, um, Beijing, Guangzhou, China, as well as Seoul, South Korea. We have over 1,000 staff, and our budget last year was over $76 million. And if you know our agency a little bit, we have three main buckets or lines of business. We have the integrated services for newcomers, which is my portfolio. We have affordable housing, as well as culturally appropriate seniors care. So I'm personally going to focus more on my area of work, which is on the social service side and programming side. And so that's kind of where we're going to start. All right, so my journey. Like I've said, I have had the honor of really being able to work in this sector for the last 25 years. And of course, I didn't start in this role. I actually started as a language instructor and then took on a variety of different roles and leadership roles over the years to where I am now. And I've been in my current role for the past 6 years. So during that time, I started off with a BA and a specialization in teaching English as an additional language. And about 10 years ago, well, no, I guess 11 years ago, I decided to go back to school to get my master's degree. And I did that in applied linguistics and TESOL. And while I was in a variety of roles, I also attended numerous leadership courses. We're really lucky to have um, the great work that's being done through the Institute. They have great certificate programs as well as a variety of standalone courses that were really great, in terms of building up that leadership knowledge, making that transition between being, doing frontline work and, being in more of a leadership role. Of course, conferences were a key component in learning about the sector, in learning about a variety of program models, as well as networking and meeting folks, not just locally in the sector, but also nationally as well. And then I really, tried to focus on a variety of training opportunities that were available. And, these are things that were offered like through AMSA, Vantage Point, Charity Village. There's so many great resources and things that can be tapped into to learn more about, the type of work that we're doing here. And I think one of the things that really helped me grow within the work that I'm doing was to seek out different opportunities. And as you saw, I do a lot of volunteer work. I've sat on quite a few boards of directors now. Um, and currently, I am the president of New Language Solutions, which is the national organization that's offering avenue.ca, which is the online learning platform for the LINK program. And I'm also the treasurer of AMSA, which we know is the umbrella agency for the settlement sector in BC. So that experience, was really eye-opening in terms of learning more about, financials of nonprofits, risk management, uh, being in a governance role as opposed to a hands-on working role that you might be when working um, or volunteering on like more of a working board. So I found that to be super informative and helpful in terms of what that looks like at different organizations as well. Other opportunities that were really key were like joining different committees that were happening. So whether that be, committees like through AMSA, they have a number of working groups that are out there and sort of having conversations about, key challenges or issues that are coming up in the sector and really being able to have those conversations with other folks that are doing the work as well. And that was incredibly informative. And then, of course, sitting at different community tables is really helpful in understanding the perspectives of different stakeholders. So, the local immigration partnerships, which are right across Canada, but of course, being involved in the ones that are that we're working in are really pertinent. Things like the map table or we also have, an alliance, for case managed services for highly vulnerable folks. These community tables are really helpful to build up the networks, to establish the relationships that are needed to help with, warm referrals and such. And so I find them to be incredibly beneficial. And I think also on my journey was really focusing on expanding, my own experience doing different types of work. So over the years, I took the chance to do different pieces of contract work. So I know it looks like I've been at one agency for a long time, but I actually did a lot of additional work outside of my main role. So I've, done work for the Center for Canadian Language Benchmarks. Um, Back in the day, there was an organization called Listen, which was really focused on the Link program. And so I did some contract work for them. You know, those experiences, really helped to expand my skill set beyond my role, because it's challenging, when you're trying to, grow your career within a sector. You know, Having the security of one role is amazing, but it also limits, the number of opportunities that you have available. So really looking outside to kind of gain that experience and gain those contacts with others is really important. Um, Additionally, though, there could be opportunities, within your role to take on extra projects or like pilot projects that might be happening. And these things are really, again, you're able to push yourself and kind of grow and learn more and um, become more familiar with the nuances of, what that type of project entails. Um, and it can be, really great again of, you know, filling out, the type of work that's being done. And then it really sort of exposes you to different aspects of the sector. As we know, there's so many different components of settlement, each of which brings so much value to the client's settlement journey. And so by participating in projects, contract work, it gives you an opportunity to be exposed more to what those different aspects entail and how those are really benefiting the clients. And then for myself, I think really taking risks to step into leadership roles was really a key component. A lot of people were always like, wow, like, what, how are you, like, why are you doing so much? Like, why, like, how are you getting into these different types of opportunities? And for myself, the opportunity really um, was just putting myself out there, throwing my hat in the ring, so to speak. So if I saw a role, but I knew I wasn't like had all the skills yet, I would just submit my resume, submit my application. And for myself, I received so many no's from that, and there's lots of different reasons for that. We know there are, lots of other people who are also applying. The needs of, the folks that are filling those roles, you know, may not fit with what we're offering. But I knew that if I didn't express my interest, if I didn't put in my application, that it was an automatic no. But at least if I, you know, put myself out there, that there was a maybe at the very least. And I think it really opened a lot of doors, even if I didn't get that opportunity right there, sometimes it led me to another opportunity, down the road a little bit. So, so that, I think really helped, to just take the risks, to keep doing it, to keep trying, and then doing things that, kind of scared me, because think, wow, like I don't know how to do that yet. But it was that push that really helped me to grow. And then taking those opportunities really gave me an opportunity, like a chance to work closely with other leaders that had different styles and different approaches. And it gave me the chance to observe them and see, okay, how do they work? How do they approach different situations? And then how does that look, for the work that I'm doing? And how can I apply that um, to like my organization and my uh, client groups. So there's lots of things that have happened over the years in the 25 years. But basically, I started, like I mentioned, as a language instructor. I took on a number of different roles within my agency and have been in my current role for the past 6 years, where I'm really having the chance to oversee all of the social service programs. And it's right across the board, whether it's, um, pre-arrival services for settlement, arrival services at YVR, post-arrival services, services for highly vulnerable clients, family programs, employment programs, entrepreneurship programs, health and wellness programs, mental health programs, and then also like indirect services that are working with the community. I really have a great scope now that I'm able to work within. So I think one of the key things that folks might be interested in is like how to influence within the sector. So this is a question that um, comes up a lot. We see um, what's going on with our clients. We can see that there may be gaps and opportunities that could maybe support clients and their settlement experiences better. And so then how do we exert that influence for change? So I really identified four key areas that I have noticed being extremely valuable. So I think um, one of the most important things is to stay informed. So what do I mean by that? We know that um, whether we like it or not, politics has a big part to play in the work that we do. And being aware of the political discourse that's happening is so important. Right now, we know that there's a provincial election coming up, and the people who are in power, have platforms. They get elected on certain platforms, and the party that they're associated with may have, um, a particular stance that may impose rules that or changes to programs that will impact our clients, that will impact our services and our funding. And so it's really important to know where these folks stand. Now, I'm not saying that we ourselves need to be political, other than trying to ensure that um, we're not uh, we're dispelling misinformation around, maybe, um, concepts with immigration, with different immigration streams. We know recently there's been so much talk about international students and temporary foreign workers. How much of that is, sort of misinformation out there and actually what the reality is for folks. So we need to stay nonpartisan, of course, because we want to be able to work with whoever is in power. But at the same time, we need to be aware of what's being talked about. And so that's what I mean by the political discourse is knowing who is there, what are they talking about, and how is that going to impact what we're doing. Another way that I stay informed is signing up for different newsletters within the sector. We know that, a variety of organizations have newsletters that they put out. It talks about, the type of work that's being done. The lip tables oftentimes will put out newsletters, as well as, AMSA themselves has great information that they share out with the sector as well. So this helps us to stay on top of, what's happening, what are other organizations doing? What are the conversations that are happening, either, with elected officials or with within the sector? What are the concerns? And so that is a great way of being able to stay informed of what's going on. Now, of course, we want to have really close relations with our funders. And again, this goes back to like being part of committees and different community tables. Oftentimes, our funders or representatives of our funders are at those same tables, and they may be, um oh, and also, like, at conferences and such too, right? So they, oftentimes will, talk about what their priorities are, and it's really important to, hear what they're saying and make note of what they're saying, and also what they're not saying, because oftentimes you know, we're trying to predict the future in a way in terms of where should our programs sort of evolve into, what should we be prioritizing to help them, to be able to secure funding for our programs. And so listening to them, listening to what they're talking about and what they're not talking about is really key in terms of being able to kind of navigate the future opportunities that might be coming or preparing for those future opportunities. Now, of course, research is a really key piece of information, and there's, you know, always new research coming out. Um, we uh, have a couple of really great resources. There's the, Center for Migration at UBC. They have amazing group of researchers there, constantly bringing out new work that we can take a look at. And of course, we have Metropolis, both in terms of the national Metropolis, Metropolis identities. There's lots of different iterations of it. And that is a great place to attend sessions where researchers are sharing the work that they're doing and giving us a sense of, what's coming or how have things been, and then how can we respond to and address that, or, you know, be proactive in mitigating things that we know might be coming about. So all of those pieces, really help us to stay informed about what's happening. And you think, well, but that's not influencing it. And I'm like, true, true. But this is sort of the background work that needs to be done, to be able to influence. Because with that knowledge, you can then use that. So connected to the research piece, though it's not research itself necessarily, is data. Okay, data is so powerful. Being evidence-based, so powerful when we are trying to exert some influence. So being informed builds up our knowledge, shows that we are aware of the landscape, what's happening, what is our context. And then the data is the evidence that we can then use to support, whatever it is that we're trying to influence. So, what do I mean by data? This can be like landing numbers, how many new immigrants are coming in, what immigration categories are they coming in at, what are their source countries, what are their, sort of language abilities, what are the industries and occupations that they're heading for, where are they going in the country, all of this information and more, gender as well. Super helpful in kind of knowing where the challenges might be or knowing what the demand might be for services. So taking a look at those landings, analyzing them a little bit, and then it's kind of going back to that political discourse because, what are you know, what is the IRCC minister setting as, the landing targets within which categories? How does that number impact the work that we're doing? And then the data is, what's actually happening on the ground. And I'll use an example of this. Uh, I don't know, for those who've been in the sector for a while, way back in 2015, there was the Syrian movement where the government brought in, huge number of Syrian refugees. And it was a huge deal. There was like so many folks here. The whole sector came together. It was like, it was a whole thing. It was amazing. And, our agency provides the RAP, the Resettlement Assistance Program services at YVR. And the total number, so now, of course, this is not just Syrians, but the total number of RAP arrivals that we served, and we serve 100% of them at the airport, was around 2,600 arrivals. And that was huge for us. That was such a big number. It was unreal. Fast forward to, uh, to last year, okay? Last year, and the year, for the last few years, the government committed to, you know, bring Afghan refugees to Canada. And they actually kind of upped and increased their overall refugee arrivals as well. They were bringing in lots of charter flights to try to increase those numbers coming quickly because they wanted it to be quick. And, I already knew like it had been a lot of work. That team had been working a lot, but my senior manager said to me like, yeah, like we've actually served over 8,100 RAP arrivals last year. And I was like, oh my goodness. We thought the Syrian initiative was huge. And that one, at that year, we served 2,600 refugees. This last year was over 8,100. So you could see the scope had increased so, so much. And it blew my mind because I knew like what a big deal Syria was and how it was just so much work. Yet our team did way more than that last year, way more. And so that really hit home to me the scope of the current initiatives and the commitments of this current government to supporting refugees. So that's what I mean by data. Sorry, I went on a bit of a tangent, but that's what I mean by data is really, taking a look at what those numbers are, like both internally with your own organization, but also externally with what's happening out there. So yeah, so that's, really kind of talking about the landings. The data can also tell you a lot about source countries. Okay. Now, again, it shows you like where the demand is for service and what the demand could be, right? Based on the landings, but now also taking a look at source countries. Now, the reason I'll give another example, and again, it's at our airport arrivals program. So we serve, you know, permanent residents that have landed for the first time, and we just give them some quick information like, hey, this is what you need to be doing, your first few days here. Here's a bunch of, settlement agencies in the community where you're headed, you know, take care, good luck. Okay, it's a pretty quick service, and I'm kind of glossing over that a wee bit, um, but we take a look at the numbers of clients that we're serving there. And again, my senior manager was like, hey, you know what? We were taking a look at, the number of clients we've served so far this fiscal, and we saw something interesting. because they were looking at the data. And he's like, the number one source country right now, he's like, is India. That's the highest number of clients are surveyed. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. We know that the numbers of landings from India are high. Okay, makes sense. He's like, number two, Philippines. Yeah, okay, that tracks. I totally get that. It's not unusual. He's like, yeah, number three is China. I'm like, okay, yeah, yeah, that makes sense. It's usually those three countries kind of bouncing around, between the top three spots. So again, I'm not surprised. He goes, but do you know what number four is? And I'm like, trying to think, okay, who's number four? Thinking, in the past, what the number four spot could be. He's like, you'll never guess. And he was right. And he's like, yeah, number four right now, he goes, is Nigeria. And I was like, huh. I'm like, interesting. I'm like, I hadn't expected that. They hadn't really been in like our top four, a permanent residence. So it's interesting what those arrivals are looking like now. So the reason why I'm sharing this is because looking at that data can be really informative in terms of what the trends are, sort of what is it that we're actually seeing on the ground. And so now I can be talking to my team and saying, hey, you know, maybe we need to start looking at uh, hiring some folks who may have Nigerian background, who would be able to relate to this sort of, new group of, not new group, but a larger group of clients that may be coming in. Um, and then I can also share that information with our funder to say, like, hey, did you know that, you know, here in BC, our number four country is Nigeria? Maybe we need to be looking at, prioritizing some services and programs that, might best support that client group. So that's where the influence comes in. Having that data and then sharing that with the funder, super, super helpful. Now, of course, a lot of what happens with immigration is connected with the economy. We know that piece. Um, and often happen and is often connected with different sectors and industries and what their needs are. We've seen that a lot with the agricultural industry and, bringing agricultural temporary workers, from a variety of countries. We have an agreement with Mexico, so a large percentage, at least of the ones here in BC, are Mexican. And so when we see, sorry, I'm going on a tangent there too, but when we see industry needs, we know that they might want support in connecting newcomers to their industry. So sometimes there could be programs like language specific or occupation specific language training programs that could help folks build up their skills so that they can be more easily connected to different occupations. And so when we take a look at what those needs are, then we're better aware of how we can like sort of where the openings are. So we can inform our clients to say like, hey, if you have a background in this sector, we know that there are a lot of opportunities there, and this could be, something that you can really pursue and um, dig into more. So these industry needs, again, it's the data to help us plan our programming, to help us, inform our clients, and again, to help us talk to funders and political leaders to show evidence of the need, for maybe specific programming that could help both sides, both the clients as well as the different industries. Another really key piece of data is client demand. And you think, how is that a piece of data? Keep track, if there's a program and you have a waiting list, or you're having to turn people away, or maybe there are folks with specific language needs that are, maybe not as able to access that program. That data is so key. It tells you where the gaps are. It tells you, you know, how much service is actually needed compared to what's already available. And so it's this data, the client demand data, that can be shared with the funder and used as an argument to, influence their funding decisions to say, like, hey, you know, you may not want to cut this program because there's X hundreds of people that need it or have been using it or still need to use it. Or, maybe you need to invest more dollars in this area of service, in order to alleviate that demand of it. Maybe we need to have additional types of programs to help serve different client groups. That information is so, so key. And tracking it and then being able to use it to influence the funder, to influence their funding decisions, that is huge. And it helps you to better serve the clients. The other piece of data that I think is really important is client experience data. Really hearing from them in terms of their experience of accessing the service, their experience of their settlement journey, their experience of, finding housing, or their experiencing accessing healthcare, whatever their experience might be. That could be a demonstration of how systems need to be changed or how programs need to be supporting these folks. You know, this is key because it's really with the folks, with their lived experience that can really highlight, the really sort of glaring barriers or the glaring gaps that might be like in our systems. And yes, we can say like, okay, yeah, 10, okay, let's say 100 people can't access this service maybe. And you in your brain you just think, oh, 10 people, 100 people. But if you can, add some narrative to that data and, really walk through whether that's elected officials, whether that's the funders themselves, to really be able to visualize what that means. That is a huge piece of data that can really be a strong influence. Now, I've kind of covered the third point a bit uh, when I've been talking about data, but it's really highlighting this piece of speak up, okay, with that data, with your sector and context knowledge. Talk to funders, okay, give them these stories, give them this information, spin it so that they understand, you know, how they should be supporting the clients, how they should be supporting the organization, how they could be supporting the community. Similarly, talk to politicians. The elected officials can truly be your allies if they understand what's going on. Because ultimately, they're elected and they are there to work for the community. And so talking to them, sharing with them what the concerns are, sharing with them, what are people's experiences, where, this gives them the the ability to take that back to the legislature, take that back to parliament, and really have strong teeth in what they're saying and sharing with their colleagues. So they can be huge allies for you. And same with the funders, you know, be there to, not, okay, yes, use the data for sure, but be the solution for them because they're not doing the work. They're just there, sharing the funding for the nonprofits to do the work. And so we are the experts. And so we need to lead them, in terms of what should be happening. And all of that really connects to my last point, which is to build relationships. So when I'm talking about this, I'm talking about relationships with other leaders, other folks who are working within the sector, building relationships with different levels of folks within the funding, ministry or division. Not just your program officer, but their supervisor, their manager, the director. Having relationships at all levels is super important because you want to build trust with them so that when you do bring this data to them, when you do speak up, they will listen. Now, they can't always do something about it, but they will listen. And then that empowers them again, to advocate or to make changes, within their systems. That same goes for the politicians, building relationships with them, which is also challenging because we know that when there's an election, you're having to rebuild relationships, but constantly taking a look at what those relationships are. Who do you need to have a relationship with? And, really forging that so that you can build up that trust. I think that's really the key piece here is the trust to know that you're coming to them with good information, you're coming to them with solutions, you're coming to them and wanting to make them look good because if they can if they can look good by helping you, then they love that, right? And then, of course, with other stakeholders. So, not just the sector folks, not just the funder and the politicians, but other stakeholders within the community. So, whether that is like, employers or, other other types of service providers, folks that ultimately can help support the clients that you're working with because you know more can be done when you can kind of bring all the folks together that you need to ensure that your clients are being successful. And so having that relationship, having that trust, you know really sort of helps support getting things done. It happens a lot smoother, not always quicker, depending on, the limitations that folks have, but it's definitely a much better process. Okay, so, we talked a lot about um, the influencing piece. Um, but oftentimes we're also looking at being able to expand the scope of what we're doing. And so, how do we take a look at expanding our scope? And so, again, I kind of identified four key pieces. And I know I might sound like a bit like I'm being repetitive, but all of these are just so interconnected for sure. So, there's different ways to expand, and so I've got a couple of different ways here. So one of the, I wouldn't say easiest, but definitely most obvious way to expand is just looking for gaps in other jurisdictions. So what do I mean by that? If you're offering a type of service in one community, is there another community that could benefit from that service because, there are no other providers doing that service there? Or maybe no other providers doing that service for the client group that you're working with. Okay, so there's a few different ways that you can look at that. So, yeah, so like take a look around, check out the landscape, see, what areas may still need that service. Um, and then, you know, is there an opportunity to um, kind of have that new program in a new location to kind of establish a footprint for yourself? So it kind of gets you started there. It's small, you're just sort of getting going, but then down the road, down the, few years down the road, potentially, there's an opportunity to expand that even further. Another really key way of expanding is to really look at key partnerships. So, are there other agencies that you can work with that are in new program areas or in new locations? And through that partnership, really being able to maybe build up experience in that programming area, but then also establishing and building up your reputation in that, uh, you know, either geographical region or programming area, because experience and reputation are two key pieces. Because we know, when we're applying for funding, you know, almost always there's a question about your experience providing the service. So the partnership is really helping you to build up that experience through the support of um, another partner, right? And so again, it's a way of leveraging that relationship in order to expand. And then advocating with decision makers really kind of goes back to what I was talking about on that previous slide. It's again, talking to the politicians, talking to the higher levels within funding ministry, um, that are really the decision makers. When there are issues, provide them solutions, okay? But also let them know what the issues are, 'cause sometimes they don't know the issues. It's a kind of two things. Either you tell them the issue and then give them the solution, or they know the issue, and so then you're giving them the solution. By doing this, it gives you an opportunity to, to expand your scope. So, as you can see, the photo that's at the top left, um, we had, this was actually just uh, last weekend. Sorry, I don't know what day it is. We had, one of our big fundraising events. We had Senator Yona Martin with us. My boss, the CEO, Queenie Chu, was there. And we had the IRCC minister, Mark Miller, in attendance. Um, and it's great that they were supporting our event, but it was also an opportunity for us to build that relationship with them, to when the time was appropriate, talk about maybe some of the issues that we were experiencing, and then really advocating for the solutions to what's going on. And this is just one picture, but I just wanted to share it because we had lots of elected officials at the event. And so, like, my role, well, I was doing a number of things at the event, but one of the key things was making sure that, that they knew who we are, that they know what we're doing, that they know, what our needs are, and to really make sure that, um, we're building that relationship, building that trust, and, really offering the solutions for them. Now, sometimes we have we have a solution, that we can't get funding for. And so sometimes we have to find ways of piloting a new program without any support. So it's really taking an idea, self-funding it, either through fundraising or, finding ways of making it work, um, to basically create that program and doing it. And by doing that, we are building up the data, right? So we can show the demand, we can show the outcomes that have been achieved, we can demonstrate the impact that that new type of program has. And then once you have that data, you've been able to run it for a while, it's much easier to sell that idea to be funded because you've already proven that it works, right? So, of course, in these types of situations, you're starting small, but the funding is, to focus on the expansion of it, making it more formalized, making it a much better way of um, incorporating it into sort of regular programming that's happening. So, couple of years ago, we did just that. We started a new project called Operation Welcome Home, where we were supporting the acute visa holder arrivals um, from Ukraine that needed housing. So we developed a program model. We self-funded it. I had to do it off the side of my desk. So goes back again to taking on those extra projects, figuring out how do we make this work? What does the program model look like? What are the policies, the procedures? How is it going to happen in a good way? Developing all of that. And then really supporting folks to find housing. So the picture on the right is, oh, it kind of got cut off, but is a multi-generational family that we help support to find a home so they could get themselves established before becoming more independent themselves. Now, the expansion piece. So we took the data, we costed it out of what that program should actually look like. And we started shopping it around. Like we talked to so many politicians and funders and showed them, what is the need? How is this working? And did not give up shopping it around, sharing it with everybody. And then finally last year, well, I guess about a year and a half ago, the Red Cross said, "Hey, yeah, we want to fund your program." And so they gave us 1 year funding, which was fantastic. We were able to build a team, and they provided amazing results. We helped support and house over 1,700 clients in that year, which is incredible and so heartwarming. Of course, that funding was only for a year, but then we looked at opportunities through other funding calls that were out there, and we were able to build that program into another program. So we were able to transition it. So we did it from a pilot off the side of my desk, self-funded, to having 1 year of funding with a team, transitioning it into another program so that it has now another potentially 5 years of funding. So so this is how we were able to expand and how we were able to, really take that idea and get it off the ground. So collaboration. So collaborations are really a key piece, and I think you can kind of, see some of that happening with what I've talked about already. It is really important, and they happen at different levels. So collaboration can be internally amongst different programs or divisions within an organization, but it can also be externally. And externally, that could be with other service providers or even other stakeholders. So, for example, this picture here, again, it's out at the airport. When we were serving, numerous Q Visa arrivals, um, we were literally working 24/7 for that service. And one of the key pieces that uh, those Q Visa holders needed was to apply for a SIN card. And so we um, were in conversation with Service Canada. They knew that we had this external booth that was not within the secured area of the airport. And they said, how about like instead of our offices being like jammed up with huge lineups, what if we like sent some staff to come like once a week and just help folks, right on the day to apply for their SIN card? And we're like, sure, sounds great. So, so that's basically what happened. So, this is actually a picture with the ADM as well as some of the local management at Service Canada. We're showing them the booth and sort of how things are running. And so that was a really great collaboration. Not only were we able to better serve the clients because, they can take care of, multiple things at one time, but it also was a solution for Service Canada to help reduce the number of folks that were, lining up at their offices, and ultimately just giving them an opportunity to, get folks sooner in that journey. So it was, and it's still ongoing. They're actually coming 2 days a week, even though the Q visa holders aren't arriving anymore, but there are a lot of international students that are coming and they need the, similar types of service and other folks, other arrivals as well. So it's great to be able to work closely with them about that. So, when we're talking about external, well, I mean, whether it's internal collaboration or external, really building the relationship and building the trust is so important. And having that really, warm, close relationship with others in the sector, um, is really key. It helps us to better understand the work that we're involved in, like either what others are doing, being more mindful of what they're doing, and then also their understanding of what work we're doing as well. And then that um, provides opportunities to say, hey, maybe we should partner on this piece, or maybe we should collaborate on this piece. And I think one of the biggest challenges though is that relationship building, it takes time and it takes effort. And so again, this kind of loops back again to, you know, sitting on committees, being at community tables where these folks, may already be at, so that you can not only participate in those conversations that are happening at those committees and tables, but then it also gives you that opportunity to build the relationship and the trust. Because, we don't all of us don't have more than 24 hours in a day. I don't know, if you find a way of doing that, let me know. But, we really have to use our time, effectively. Um, I had a point and now I forgot it. Okay, that's fine. Um, oh, I know what I wanted to share. In terms of, partnerships and collaborations, we um, have just recently started a safe haven program to serve refugee claimants in the Tri-Cities area. And for that program, we had to have partnerships with other service providers. And so we partnered with Share to help support the counseling services that need to be part of that project. We partnered with the Muslim Food Bank to help support a variety of client groups, with their counseling, but also with some other aspects of the program. And so being able to work closely with those other stakeholders are really key in being able to effectively uh, serve the clients, to meet them where they're at, but then also, building up those strong connections. And we also partnered with YWCA to help with the employment components of that program as well. Okay, and collaborations. Again, this is kind of going back to, being involved on those different tables. Get involved in the local immigration partnerships. We have some really amazing lips here in Metro Vancouver, doing incredible work. And so it will help you on so many levels. I can't even say, because they are just fantastic. And yes, they'll help support the collaboration piece, but it'll help support the relationship piece. The sector knowledge piece. You know, getting to know other stakeholders, super important. Again, being involved on those committees and other tables to be familiar with who the stakeholders are. And that's when you have the chance to look for opportunities and synergies. Like I said, to be able to partner, to be able to collaborate. It's within those moments of realizing, hey, that would be a good agency to work with, or hey, that would be a great person to be involved in what we're doing. So always keep that in the back of your mind, because those synergies really just happen, in that moment. And then ultimately for collaboration, I think being a team player is super important. And I know it's not always possible. I know I try my best. I can't always guarantee it, but be responsive to requests. So if another agency or service provider, is asking you about something, do your best to try to get back to them. If you are within a collaboration already, if there are deadlines involved, um, you know, work your best to meet those deadlines, because ultimately, they have other obligations as well. And so by not meeting those deadlines, it can really strain that relationship. And then within a collaboration, if any issues do come up, raise them early. And, when you're bringing forward, what those issues are, try to come with some solutions so that, a really productive conversation can happen. And I'll just give you an example. We have a national project that we are leading with a variety of partners. And, you know, part of that contribution agreement is that, we have to do financial reporting. Of course, that would meet not just the standards for that claim, but also would meet the standards in, not in case, but when we get audited, because ultimately we know funders, they will always do a financial audit at least once a year, right? And so we have to have the documentation, for the spending, and the spending has to be within the funding guidelines, right? So that's all coming from the funder. But as the lead, contract holder working with these partners, we need them to submit, their financial information to us with the documentation associated with it. And then like our finance team has to do a whole bunch of work to verify it, roll it all together into one claim, right? And then submit that to the funder. And so it's a ton of work. Like honestly, it's sometimes it feels like it's too much work. Um, but if folks aren't being responsive, if they're not meeting deadlines, that makes it super tough on our team to be able to produce the work that they need to produce for the funder. So I'm just trying to give you an example of what that can look like as well. So I know I've spoken for a long time and I apologize, but I just wanted to say thank you so much. And I know you're going to have some questions, but I'm also open. If you have questions later, my email address is there. And if you want to check out, Success social media, we are on a few different platforms, but I would be happy to uh, take some questions now.